The Mini Match Pod. Hello guys and welcome to this week's Mini Match Pod. I hope we're all having a good week so far. Absolutely miserable weather as always, and yeah, the football's not much better so far this week. I've got to talk about it, haven't I? But anyway, so yeah, we'll talk about the Doncaster game as much as we don't really want to, and then we'll look ahead to yet another tough away game up north against Lincoln City. So yeah, a busy episode this week. Unfortunately, I haven't got ITFC Analytics this week. He's had a busy week, bless him. So we all have busy lives, and unfortunately, football doesn't pay the bills as much as we'd like it to. I think we'd all love to get paid to talk about football, and that would be a sustainable career for many of us, the amount we do. But yeah, unfortunately, he's had a busy week this week. But he's assured me that he'll be back in time for Saturday's game with his own threads talking about Lincoln City and as well as a review of Doncaster. So if you haven't followed him on Twitter, make sure you do that. Really insightful, knowledgeable stats and statistics about Ipswich Town. So we'll dive straight into it and yeah, look back rather fondly, not about Tuesday's game before we build up Lincoln City. So how did we get on against Doncaster?
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
I mean, do I have to? Do I actually have to talk about it? You can't make me talk about it. I'm going to have to talk about it, aren't I? Final score, Doncaster Rovers 4, Ipswich Town 1. And yeah, we mentioned it. That roller coaster ride has come to a very sudden stop. Not a very enjoyable evening for those that were able to watch the game. I know there's a few issues with iFollow, but basically you didn't miss a lot really. If you missed the first 15 minutes, I'm really sorry. If you did catch the final 75 minutes, they were abysmal. So we'll break down the game as we always do. So Town made one change. John Noland, that's John without the H. They like to put John Noland, but it might as well have been a John Noland with an H, because he weren't really his usual self from this season, at least. Anyway, on Tuesday night, he comes back into the starting 11, replacing Teddy Bishop. Ollie Hawkins also returned to the squad. He had a back injury that we mentioned, which kept him out of the Accrington Stanley game. But yeah, he comes back in. And does get some minutes later on, but a little too late, unfortunately. But it was a really bright start from both sides. A few sloppy moments at the back from Town early on, but we were getting away with it early doors. Sadly, that wouldn't last. But I thought we were very aggressive and dogged in the midfield. We were winning the 50-50s and really getting on top in the opening 10 minutes. And Gwion Edwards was clearly a man full of confidence, enjoying his purple patch of form. And yeah, he performed a Maradona-esque roulette around the impressive Ben Whiteman in the Doncaster midfield, which I know got a few pulses racing on social media. But Emma Hughes has the first real chance for Town. He sort of gets in a little bit of space in midfield, strides forward. He's got a decision to make whether he slides in one of the Town players or has an effort. He decides to go for goal, but it's a fairly tame effort, which Bursick in the Doncaster goal has to deal with, and that's pretty much really the only action he had to deal with. He was a very quiet man for most of the game. But yeah, we do take the lead. As hard as it is to believe with the way the game ended, we took the lead. Fantastic play from Chambers. He wins the header just over the halfway line from a Thomas Holy clearance, flicks it into Judge, who plays it back into Chambers, who carries on his run, bursts into the box. He's on the right. He's inside the box, right hand side of the box. He's looking at Freddie Sears at the far post. Hits a low driven cross across the face of the goal, and sadly for Joe Wright, he's there, tries to clear it, but ends up steering it past Bursick, who's trying to go anticipate the shot from Freddie Sears if the ball does does fall to him. So Town do take the lead, and yes, Chambers having a great game at right back seemingly to start the game. But yeah, this is where it really starts to go downhill, unfortunately. And the early signs were there that we weren't that comfortable playing out for the back, and Doncaster definitely knew that. So Holy has a dreadful clearance. It goes straight to Josh Sims, who had a great game for Doncaster. He's on the edge of the box, and it's a bit of a mad scramble. The ball sort of pinging about between a few Doncaster players. They can't believe their luck that they've got the ball, but Toto's there. He manages to chuck himself in the way and prevent Doncaster from profiting from that. Town do get another chance. Judge plays a little 1-2 with Sears on the edge of the Doncaster box. He gets the ball again back from Sears, cuts inside onto his left foot, but it's an effort straight at the goalkeeper. But yeah, Doncaster sort of start to get a little bit more involved in the game. Ben Whiteman's got a lot more time on the ball to sort of pick his passes. They're winning a few set pieces, getting some dangerous crosses into the box, and yeah, all that pressure mounts to a goal for Doncaster. So Wilson and Nsiala kind of get drawn to Okunbire. He's been real handful up front there on his own as the lone striker. I think the goal scorer, Cameron John, he chose the MK Dons, doesn't he? Cameron John plays a 1-2, or plays the ball into Okunbire, I should say. And both Toto and Wilson fail to communicate. They both get drawn towards the ball. Kenlock is then pulled out of position to deal with Matt Smith. And Cameron John is still there, continuing his run, receives the ball in the gap left behind Wilson, Kenlock and Nsiala, and he's got all the time and finishes really well. I think he does go in off the crossbar, but yeah, a really good finish for them, and they probably did deserve it. They really were getting on top of us. It was their first real clear-cut chance of the game, but the pressure was building, and then it just carried on from there. Majid Gomez, who's been in sensational form for Doncaster this season. He fires wide on the edge of the box with an effort. Toto heads the ball clear. It falls to Gomez, but he can only flash the ball across the face of the Town goal. But yeah, just before half time, that pressure kept building, and yeah, a really poor goal, this one. It's a short corner, which is worked out to Whiteman, who had a really good game. Really big fan of Ben Whiteman, someone we did big up in Sunday's episode. He floats this ball back, and they're trying to get a better angle for the cross. All the Town players miss it, and Holy's caught napping. The ball just finds its way into the back of the net, and yeah, Doncaster probably getting what they deserved in that first half. Not creating a world of clear-cut chances, but certainly on top, and the pressure was mounting, and we really struggled to win that midfield battle for the majority of the first half. After that opening 15 minutes, the midfield really went into their shells, and especially when we went behind, they were absolutely nowhere, and Doncaster had a really comfortable game. So yeah, it was really disappointing to see. As I said, that early aggressiveness and fight in the midfield really evaporated, and some silly and unforgivable mistakes really. 2 avoidable goals, I'd say. Both centre halves arguably at fault for that first goal, both getting drawn to the ball and leaving space when we've been quite tight this season. I thought we've dealt with it well. I don't know whether the midfield could have done a little bit more in preventing the build-up play to that goal, but you'd expect your centre-halves to be able to communicate and deal with that. And then the second goal, Thomas Holy, he's got away with a lot this season. I think the clean sheets and general lack of action that he's had, he's really come out with rave reviews, but there's been some sloppy moments, and today in this game he was really exposed, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw David Cornell come back in. But yeah, at half time I thought, as I said, there were 2 avoidable goals, but you were hoping with the change that we could do something, and we did address this. I was suggesting about pushing one of the centre mids further forward to get onto Whiteman, who had all the time in the world to spray passes about. I think they realised that Kenlock was a little bit exposed to John Taylor. I think he had the beating of him for the majority of the game, and that was a real dangerous asset for Doncaster. But we pushed John Noland into that advanced role. We kind of switched to a 4-2-3-1. John Nolan sitting up behind Sears, and we started quite brightly. We managed to turn the ball over from a Doncaster goal kick. Sears has fed in, but his effort is once again straight at the keeper. I think Edwards was there as an option to square it, but a poor decision from Freddie Sears there. But yeah, the warning signs are there, and once again we let Doncaster get in control as much as Noland was playing a little bit further forward to start the half, where they were still having the same amounts of joy, and Enciala switches off. I think it's a pass coming through to Okunbire, which he's either stopped by Wilson getting to the ball or it's just overhit. But Josh Sims, he's a Premier League player on loan from Southampton. He's like half a yard quicker mentally than most of the players on the pitch, and I think that showed throughout the game. He's alive and he's there to anticipate the ball coming through. Toto has to sort of panic and get back. He dives in with a rash challenge, which Sims does ride. I thought he was going to go down, and that probably would have been the end of Toto's evening, but he can only fire across the goal. And generally after that, it was some really sloppy defending, playing out of the back and general passing. It was really difficult for us to string a couple of passes together. The confidence in the team looked completely shot, and yeah, really struggling to get going, get any attacking threat into the game whatsoever. But after this, it's almost a carbon copy of what happened before. Sims is in behind again. He's half a yard ahead, if not more, than Enciala, and Toto does get back, but you can see what's going to happen from a mile off. Toto's got his arm on the shoulder. Sims is only about 5'6", 5'5", I think, and we all know how big and clumsy Toto can be. He's there, he's trying to get ahead, but Sims is in the area. He goes down, wins the penalty. It's a clear penalty as it is. Sims was probably going to get away and at least get a shot underway, and yeah, it's a penalty. Toto gives the penalty away, and Whiteman sends Holy the wrong way to make it 3-1. And yeah, quickly after that, it's 4-1. Town pissing about with the ball at the back. Holy does a nice little Cruyff turn, plays it to Dizelle, who plays it back to him, and then he does an awful pass which goes straight to Sims. He feeds it into Okunbire. Defence is caught sort of out of position and off balance, and Okunbire just powerfully strikes the ball across the face of Thomas Holy and into the far corner, and it's game over from there. I think we ended up beating ourselves, really. We saw the likes of Bishop came on just before the penalty was given, but Hawkins and Bennett's came on later, but the game was gone. We weren't in it. Doncaster were comfortable. They didn't really have much to do they didn't have anything to do in the second half, really. After the opening 5 minutes, they could set up shop and just pick us off, because like I said, we just ended up beating ourselves. 4 completely avoidable goals, I think. Really vastly underwhelming performance, rife with poor individual performances across the park. You know, I think Chambers was probably the only redeeming player out of that, and that's purely because of his contribution in the first half. And the errors in this game were completely unforgivable. Holy and Toto Enciala in particular, but I think the midfield going completely missing for a large portion of the game was the biggest factor in us in losing that game. But yeah, Doncaster were by far the better side, and we just handed the chance to them, you know, chance after chance on a silver platter to them, really, and they punished us ruthlessly like all good teams tend to do at this level. League One is a little bit of a funny division. If you are fairly robust and tight, teams do struggle to break you down, but when you play against the better sides, if you hand them chances like we did on Tuesday night, then they're going to pick you apart, and that's exactly what Doncaster did. And it's really disappointing, because I think the opening 10-15 minutes leading up to the goal, we were really aggressive, winning the ball in the midfield, and the pressure and the intensity that we were showing were really encouraging. I think Doncaster were struggling to deal with it, to be honest, and we certainly looked like a side that was top of the table at that point. But the midfield just let their foot off the gas, and once that goal went in, they really seemed to go into their shells, and they were just getting beaten time and time again, not winning the 50-50s, picking poor passes, and generally not pressing the opposition midfield. As I said, Ben Whiteman had, you know, all week to pick passes from deep there, and it was just putting us under the cosh time and time again. But I really hope this is a wake-up call. It proves a point for Town not to get complacent. We can't afford performances like this because it's ultimately what cost us last season. I think, ironically, this was the same date that we lost our first game last season, so we've matched that. And God forbid we go the same way as we did last season, because we can't afford to stay in League One, as we know. But I think this season we've been fortunate at times not to be punished for some really sloppy play and mistakes at times. Better sides like Doncaster do punish you, and that was proven on Tuesday night. There's been times where we've played it out of the back, and I think on paper, when you look at Holy, Wilson, Enciala, Kenlock, they're not the players that you want in that back four or back five to be able to play that style of football. But yeah, we really need to take this as a wake-up call and really bounce back from this against another really tough opposition, an opposition of the calibre of Doncaster, which is Lincoln, who we're going to go to talk about in a little while. But yeah, it remains to be seen really whether Lambert will make any significant changes. I don't think anyone really played particularly well, but does he go off the back of all the performances that have gone before this game, or is he going to swiftly cull a few names and bring in some new faces into the starting 11? But yeah, I think probably a bit of a footballing cliche, but it wasn't a 4-1 game as much as the final score was. I think we allowed it to become that with our performance. The mistakes were, as I've said, unforgivable. I don't want to keep banging on about it, but yeah, I think it would be rash to overreact at this stage. As poor a performance as that was, we need to judge how Town respond to this. We've got 3 games in the space of a week to come now after Saturday, so we've got Lincoln, Gillingham and then Crewe. That will see if it's a lapse or something to be more worried about in the bigger scheme of things. But Hull have done that as well. They lost 4-1 to Fleetwood, but they bounced back with a win against AFC Wimbledon. So it does happen. I think we'd be rash to get too carried away with this, as much as it is a poor performance and a really bad defeat to suffer. But as I said, Doncaster are a good side, and they're probably going to do this to a number of sides, and they have done. They beat Bristol Rovers by 4-1. They beat Charlton 3-1. So it was always going to be a tough game, and I would have took a point really, and I was expecting us to draw that game, and I'm expecting us to draw against Lincoln as well, or at least I was until Tuesday's performance. So I would be happy to be proven wrong with a surprise win, and after all, 1 win and 1 draw is better than 2. 1 win and 1 defeat, is better than 2 draws, purely for the sake of remaining unbeaten. So yeah, we'll judge it after Saturday's game and then going into the next 2, how much of this is how big this issue is. But God, I don't want to remember this game too fondly, and it did give me flashbacks to last season, unfortunately. We'll just finish off with the player ratings, but yeah, I think a lot of the players, if they were listening, will probably be turning off at this point. But like I said, these are always out of 10. If you disagree, agree, then let me know. I'm on Twitter. They're always on Twitter, so you can always respond to me on there. So starting with Thomas Holy, I gave him a 3. Some awful play. Second goal was completely his fault, as was the fourth. And yeah, I think we've seen it at times this season where he has been a little bit sloppy, not only with his passing, but general play inside the box. He's spilt a few balls, I think, from crosses. Doesn't seem like the same keeper we had at the start of last season. I think there's always been the questions about his kicking, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cornell does come in. I don't think Cornell's done anything wrong, and certainly his distribution, which Lambert's picked out, is a lot better than Thomas Holy's. But yeah, he won't be remembering this game. I'm sure he wasn't smiling after this one either. Luke Chambers gets a 6. That's purely for his contribution in the goal, and I think generally there was nothing he could do about the goals, mainly due to mistakes of others around him. Toto Enciala gets a 3. That's very much Toto of old, unfortunately. Hopefully it's just a one-off. He has performed well. We all know he's got that mad 30 seconds to a minute spell that does come every game. Sometimes it comes more than once, and sadly tonight he had a really abysmal time. James Wilson gets a 4, not as bad as Toto Nsiala, but certainly not his best performance. I think they did both struggle against Okunbire. Ken Locke gets a 4 as well, exposed to John Taylor, who made him look silly for quite a lot of the game. Not a lot of issues coming down that left flank in the main, but he was getting exposed there. We can't beat around that. Andre Giselle gets a 5, perhaps a little bit fortunate, a little bit generous. I think he was quite fortunate to stay on the pitch. I don't think he got booked either, which was a bit of a surprise because he did leave his foot in a few times, and there was that incident with, I think it was Okunbire, wasn't it? I'm not sure if it was an elbow or just a late challenge there. So perhaps fortunate to still be on the pitch. Emir Hughes, 4, started the game really well but faded into nothing. It was some really poor play. John Noland, exactly the same. Started brightly, faded. I didn't even notice him at times, especially when he moved up behind Sears, who didn't really influence what we were trying to do in stopping Whiteman getting on the ball. Alan Judge, Christ, I even forgot he was on the pitch. He gets a 3 as well. Freddie Sears gets a 4, a little bit wasteful in front of goal, but probably our best attacking player. Alongside Gwion Edwards, I gave him a 5 purely for that roulette, but he didn't do a lot else, bless him. And then all the subs, so Bishop, Hawkins and Bennett all get a 5 as well. Little too late for them to really do anything in the game. So as for Doncaster Rovers, I gave them a 7 out of 10. That's probably a little bit harsh, but it was a solid, robust and clinical performance for them. I don't think they had to be on their best to beat us because we were able to give them the chances. And maybe, it's always a little bit easier to pick holes in our team before praising your opposition. But a very good side, as we said, some really high calibre League One players at their disposal. And I think they'll certainly be up there for most of the season. But yeah, I don't think it probably flatters them a little bit. A really good performance. I'm not going to deny that they weren't the better side because, quite frankly, they were for a large majority of the game. But certainly we helped them in getting that 4-1 victory as opposed to them creating chance after chance. And yeah, I think they only had 4 shots on target and obviously all 4 went in, didn't they? So there you go. So yeah, glad to be over from talking about that. So hopefully we can put that game behind us, but we'll move on to Saturday's opponents, and that is Lincoln City. Bound travel to Sincilback for yet another tough test this season away from home. This time it's against fellow early pace setters Lincoln City under the tutelage of Michael Appleton. Appleton joined the Imps after the departure of the Cowley brothers earlier last season. The meteoric rise under the two came to an end. They had 2 promotions, one for the National League, and then they had a year in League 2 where they won the EFL trophy and then went on to get promoted the following year. And obviously they've got that infamous FA Cup run that always comes back to haunt us. Still can picture Mick McCarthy on the sidelines there. But yeah, we won't talk about that. I did that last week, didn't I? I banged on about losing in the FA Cup. I talk about us losing too much, don't I? Hopefully I won't have to do that for many episodes this season. But yeah, it was more of a settled and quieter season than the previous 3 with Appleton at the helm now. Seems Appleton is looking to lead them into a new direction with a new philosophy and playing style. The hard-working kind of blood and guts, industrious football of the Cowleys has been replaced with more progressive and flowing football with quite a large emphasis on youth and bringing in talented young players from bigger clubs, mostly on loan, but also picking up a few players that have fallen by the wayside and being able to use Appleton's experience at higher levels as well as working with youngsters to try and turn them probably into a bit of a lucrative prospect for Lincoln. If they can get them performing well and maybe sell them on for a good fee, then that will stand them in good stead financially as well, and hopefully we'll be able to, for them at least, hopefully be able to progress even further than they had done under the Cowleys. But yeah, Michael Appleton, really well respected manager at League One level, and he kind of used last season to assess the squad that was left to him by the Cowleys. They didn't start too well, in the Cowleys. I think there was a little bit of off-field issues around who was in control of the budget there and how much they were going to be able to influence the transfer policy, and whether the Lincoln City Board saw their ethos and playing style as something that was going to be successful for Lincoln long term. But yeah, they moved on to Huddersfield, and Appleton came in, got them into a secure position, and by January they kind of were just trying to settle on this brand of football that Appleton has gone forward with this season. So he did a recent interview with BBC Sport, and he said he took a risk in January, bringing in quite a few young players, and yeah, just trying to recruit players who fit into the style of football he would like to play in his system, and perhaps sacrificing their league position in a little bit. But they were already safe. They weren't going to be pushing for promotion. They weren't going to be tied up in a relegation fight. They were kind of just floating around mid-table and the bottom half of the table. So it was just a way of him experimenting, seeing what he's got and seeing where he needed to bring players in. So there's been quite a mass overhaul at Lincoln, similar to Blackpool really, as we discovered a few weeks back. The old guard has moved on. Quite a lot of young, exuberant players have come in. You've got a load of players who've come in who've had good years at League Two last year, either on loan or moving on permanent deals, as well as a few players on loan from Premier League clubs. But in comparison to Blackpool, Appleton's had a lot more time to mould his squad and assess it than Neil Critchley has. And he seemingly put the playing style first, bringing in players on the short term who can sort of fill a few gaps in where they weren't going to be able to play the Appleton system. But yeah, he put that ahead last year, getting that nailed, and now using the summer. I think they did really well in that summer window, working quickly and recruiting early, probably ahead of a lot of other sides who maybe were kind of being a little bit cautious with the whole unknown with the COVID situation. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for Lincoln. And as we said, a lot of old heads going out, and the likes of stalwarts Neil Erdley, Michael Bostwick, Jason Shackle, Josh Vickers, all synonymous players with the Cowley tenure, the era of kind of industry and commitment rather than sort of style and substance at times. That's gone now. 12 other players in addition to them have left, all being released or allowed to leave, and a lot of players who, as with those, were with Cowley for a large portion of their time in the club. And he's used the summer, as I said, and the lockdown period to do a lot of research and get players in early and recruit well ahead of their rivals, particularly in this division, as well as probably clubs higher in the pyramid. So in come the likes of League Two promotion heroes James Jones, Alex Palmer and Callum Morton, who featured for Crewe, Plymouth and Northampton respectively last season. Palmer and Morton have joined from West Brom on loan, so a club that Michael Appleton has been employed by in the past. He's also brought in quite an influx of progressive modern day defenders to try and freshen up there. Obviously Bostwick, Shackle, Kean Bolger, Neil Erdley, quite your industrious, old school, solid defenders. They want to play out from the back like a lot of teams seems to be doing nowadays, and he's had to bring in players to do that. So back comes TJ Ayoma. He was on loan from Spurs, didn't make an appearance last year, but he's come in again. Adam Jackson returns to League One football. He had been really impressive with Barnsley in the time where they sort of yo-yoed between League One and the Championship. He moved up to Scotland to play for Hibs for a year, but he's come back down, and he's a really solid addition at this level. They've also brung in he's a Dutch centre-half and a male model. I don't know how many times you can say that. Lewis Monsma, he's come in from Dutch football, as well as Joe Walsh from MK Dons. He was released there. Another MK Dons man has come in as well. We spoke about him a few weeks back in, was it the first or second mini match pod? Might have been the second. Industrious, quite a talented midfielders. Conor McGrandles is the one from MK Dons, and they brought in Liam Bridcut as well, who many League One and Championship fans will be more than aware of by now. So all in all, it's certainly a rebrand and a bit of a facelift from what Lincoln have been used to over the last few seasons. And yeah, as I said, Appleton's laid in the groundwork last season by moulding his style of players with the players that who were remaining there, removed players that don't really fit his system, and then identified replacements and been able to add depth and quality to his squad. And with a play style in place, it's going to be the results on the pitch now that matter for Lincoln. Well, they always matter for football clubs, but he's got that foundation there to build upon, and it's just going to be about performing to a high level and performing that brand of football successfully. So he's played down their chances. He certainly did at the start of the season, but again, in that recent interview, the way they've started, he's kind of building expectations a little bit. But as football managers like to do, he played it down. It's a long old season, go through all your cliches that you like, really. But yeah, I think they're a team to really look out for this season. Their form is probably going to peak and trough at times throughout the season, and that's generally because of a new squad finding their feet, a lot of players trying to click, but also a little bit short on depth in a few areas, particularly up front, I'd say. But I wouldn't rule out a playoff position for Appleton's men. Certainly a dark horse, and definitely a side to watch out for. I think they gave us a tough time last season, as much as they finished 16th place after points per game. We played them 4 times last year, so we had 2 games in the FA Cup, a 1-1 draw in the first round, which took it to a replay at Sincilbank, which we won, Alan Judge scoring the winner in that one. Then just after that, we went back up to Sincilbank and got demolished 5-3, didn't we? Probably flattered us that game, to be honest. I don't think we were really looking like a side that were going to score 3 goals, and they really tore us apart in that game. And I thought that was going to be the final nail in Paul Lambert's coffin. That did get really toxic after full time, and quite rightly so. I think we'd been suffering for a little while with quite a few poor performances, particularly away from home, let alone the ones at Portman Road that we'd go on to see later in the season. But yeah, that looked like to be the final nail in his coffin. But we had the mini resurgence, didn't we? And then it all fell apart again. And yeah, in that resurgent run, we actually beat Lincoln 1-0 at Portman Road, and I thought it was probably one of our best performances last season, if I'm brutally honest. I think we might have played 4-3-3 in that game, which goes to show that you probably should stick to what you know, Paul. But yeah, it just show that we're fairly evenly matched with Lincoln City. They have got the beating of us over a number of games in the past few years, but we've also been able to best them at times, even if it is just by the 1 goal. But it's going to be another tough afternoon on Saturday. We're not going to make any bones about that. They're third in the table as it stands, and they've had a little bit of a drop off, but they've come back strong. So we'll have a look at their last 3, as well as a few results earlier in the season, and then we'll have a look at how they lined up in their last game against Plymouth, and then we'll just have a little bit of a chat about how we think the game's going to go. As I said, ITFC Analytics is joining us this evening, but rest assured he'll be back in future episodes. He's just got a busy time of it of late. I've given him the week off. I think he needed it after after Tuesday night's game. I'm sorry. So yeah, so let's have a look at Lincoln's last 3 games. So as we mentioned, they're currently in 3rd place. They've had impressive 2-0 victories over the likes of Charlton and Oxford, which kind of did set their early pace, but that came to a halt 2 games ago against Bristol Rovers. So the gas actually came from behind to beat Lincoln at Sincilbank. Adam Jackson was sent off late in that game as well, so quite a disappointing end to that. You'd probably say Bristol Rovers are going to be a side looking down rather than up this season. They've had a bit of a resurgence recently, but yeah, probably a disappointing end to their unbeaten starts of the season. They stopped the rot after that. Fleetwood, who had won 4-1 the previous week against Hull City, which was a fantastic game on Sky if you watched that. they managed to get a point at Highbury Stadium. And yeah, that's probably a decent result to kind of rebalance things there and make a charge to go again. And then on Tuesday night, they were able to win 2-0 at home to Plymouth. Plymouth have started really well. I think they're up towards the playoff places, had a good start to their season after being promoted from League Two. And yeah, so looks like they're coming back. A little bit of a mixed bag of results in the last three, but well up there. Certainly, probably as expected, that mixed bag of results when we're now getting into the busy run of games. Just like us, it's Saturday, Tuesday for quite a while now. So yeah, but as those results I mentioned earlier, there's some impressive results in there, and it is a positive signs for Lincoln, showing that Appleton's vision is working. There's just a few teething problems along the way, but yeah, they'll be looking to continue their winning ways on home soil, especially off the back of our disappointing performance in midweek. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really evenly matched game, but we'll see how they lined up. There's some players, one in particular a lot of Town fans should really keep an eye out for. I'm sure he's got links to a certain Town favourite from the late 90s, but we'll go through their squad as we always do. They play a 4-3-3 system, so as I said, it's going to be a closely fought game, and they play a very similar brand of football to what we've seen this season, playing it out from the back, quite an industrious midfield at times, obviously with quite a lot of ability in there as well, and then it's down to particularly their wide men to be the biggest contributors this season. But they have got someone who's on a red hot run of form, and we'll talk about him just in a minute's time. So in goal they've got Alex Palmer, so we mentioned him earlier. He's 24-year-old goalkeeper on loan from West Brom. He was part of Plymouth's promotion winning side from last season, and he kept the most clean sheets in League One, so they'll certainly be hoping that he can translate that form at the level above this season. And he started the season with some clean sheets. There's two in their last three as well. So obviously a tight defence is the key to a successful side, and as we've seen until Tuesday, we've been able to do that as well. So they're going to be looking to remain resolute at home and hopefully, for them at least, earn another clean sheet. Right back, they've got TJ Ayoma, 20-year-old defender on loan from Spurs. So as we said, he returns after not making an appearance on loan last season. Starting at right back, but I believe he can also play as a centre-half. And yeah, he's still very raw, but seems to be growing in confidence and stature game by game. Growing in confidence, and obviously wins always help breed a little bit more confidence. Seems like quite an athletic and physical lad. Probably someone to look out for, but I thought Eardley was pretty good for them, but I was surprised to see him go. But looks like Appleton's going in a different direction. The heart of the fence, they've got Joe Walsh, 28-year-old free transfer from MK Dons, ball playing centre half, and he was second fiddle to Jackson, but since he got that red card against Bristol Rovers, Walsh has come in and kept his place. Whether the midweek game will see a little bit of change there, we'll have to wait and see. Jackson is a very good defender. Wouldn't be surprised to see him come back in, but Walsh has been part of a defence that's got 2 clean sheets. So if they're like Paul Lambert, or at least what Paul Lambert's claimed this season, if they're going to keep players who are performing well, then Walsh looks like he's going to be keeping the shirt, and his next man is certainly the star of their season so far. That's Lewis Monsma, 22-year-old Dutch centre-half and male model. Derek Zoolander-esque, I'm sure, but he's in red-hot form, not just on the catwalk. He's scored 6 goals this season from centre-half, which is insane, really, for a centre-half. I think he scored in about 4 consecutive games, which is crazy, and that includes a winner, last-minute winner. They were 2-2, drawing 2-2 at Blackpool, and he got the last-minute winner to win that game for him. But yeah, he joined from Droidrech. God, you know what I'm like, pronouncing names, not great. Left back, they've got Sean Rowan, 17-year-old Irish left back. So real surprise package there. A player we're going to go to talk about, another one who's familiar to Town fans, has featured there this season. I think they've also got Max Melbourne, who is another one who's come through at West Brom. Not sure if he is a left back or a right back, but seemingly Rowan has come in and started the season really well. Quite a raw prospect, a bit like Ioma on the other side, but looks to have bags of potential and, started the season well and growing in confidence as the games go. So we move on to the midfield three. Conor McGrandles, 25-year-old, joined from MK Dons, and I think as we mentioned in that mini-match pod building up to the MK Dons game, quite an understated presence in the midfield for MK last year. Industrious, but he's got a touch of flair, and that's certainly the sort of player that Appleton likes. He prefers good footballers as opposed to hard workers, I think. But this next man is a good combination of the two, really. That is Liam Bridcut, so 31-year-old veteran defensive midfielder, played for the likes of Leeds, Nottingham Forest, and he's played in the Premier League with Sunderland. Really tidy player, probably an understated presence in there, but absolute quality, a real asset at this level. And he's took over the captaincy with the departures in the summer, and I think he's probably going to be one of the key men. If he's performing well, he's going to make your afternoon a lot smoother, controlling the pace of the game in midfield and generally disrupting the opposition. Next to him, they've got James Jones, 24-year-old Scottish midfielder, signed from newly promoted Crewe, another free transfer, and another industrious midfielder with a touch of flair, but he seems to be a little bit more creative than McGrandles on the other side. Could be a real weapon in the heart of that midfield as well, and I think Crewe are probably a little bit gutted to see him go. Now, this is the man I'm going to talk about, and it's Brennan Johnson, 19-year-old on loan from Nottingham Forest, and he is the son of Ipswich Town and Nottingham Forest legend David Johnson, and he plays exactly like his dad, energetic, pacey attacker, and he's got his dad's eye for goal as well, it seems. Really bright start to his short time with the Imps already. I think he scored once, but he's gone close on a number of occasions, and a really bright spark, and he has potential to be one of the signings of the season if he isn't recalled. I wouldn't be surprised with the managerial change at Forest if he does get recalled in January, if there is a recall option there. But he was featuring for Forest last season, so it's quite surprising to see him go out on loan. But there's been a lot of incomings at Nottingham Forest. Perhaps he's fell down the pecking order a little bit, but really dangerous option on the wing. He's going to cause Miles Canlock a world of pain down that right-hand side, I think. We're definitely going to have to keep an eye on Brennan Johnson, and it's a shame. I'd like to send him at Town. If he's certainly living up to his dad's reputation at the minute. So really good little player they've got there. In the middle, the main striker is Tom Hopper, 26-year-old who signed from Southend in January. Not really a prolific striker, but a bit more of a grafter and that more supportive striker, a bit like what we have with Hawkins. He allows others to be dangerous and takes up areas of the pitch where it keeps defenders occupied, and that gives the likes of Johnson and the next man we're going to talk about, who is also incredibly dangerous, gives them opportunities to thrive and have 1v1s against their opponents. But he's not really had his goal scoring boots yet. He's only got 3 goals in about 15 games for Lincoln so far, but if they can, I don't think he's really there to score goals as a main goal scorer. They had Tyler Walker last year who put up some good numbers on loan from Forest, but I think Hopper's more of your support striker, and the attacking players out wide are going to be the ones who are going to be scoring the goals for Lincoln City. So on the left wing, and it's a player I'm a really big fan of, that's George Grant, kind of a 25-year-old, kind of an attacking mid, but he does seem to play out wide more nowadays. Came through Forest Academy as well. I can remember his loan spells at Notts County is ridiculous in League Two, popping up with all sorts of goals. I think you'd look at the video printer on Sky's on Gillette Soccer Saturday, and George Grant would be scoring, if not every week, every other week. It's fantastic for them. Had a loan spell of Luton in League One, didn't really adjust there, but he seems to be starting to recapture that electric form. He's got 5 goals and 5 assists this season, takes set pieces, take penalties, can shoot from range, score all sorts of goals. He's going to be a real threat, and along with Johnson, that's going to be a real worry for us on Saturday afternoon, I feel. They've also got the likes of Harry Anderson, Theo Archibald and Anthony Scully, all busy attacking players who can be a real handful. I think they can line up anywhere across the front three. Anderson and Archibald are more wingers. I think Scully's a little bit more versatile. Anderson's been there a little while. He was there with the Cowleys. More of your traditional winger. Archibald has moved up. Impressed with League Two strugglers at Macclesfield last year. And Scully joins from West Ham's academy, got released from them. So one of these players they're going to hope to probably make a little bit of money on if he does perform well for them. They've also got Callum Morton. He's another striking option. He's on loan from West Brom, so Appleton's former employers. He impressed at Northampton last year. Busy little forward, quite suited to being a pressing forward and putting a lot of pressure on the back line as well as contributing with goals. Another player to mention is Teo Eden. He's also with Lincoln. He joined in January. A bit like us, really. I don't think they really know how to play him. I think he's played in a variety of roles out wide, centrally, but most recently featured at left back. But looks like he's lost out to Rowan. So yeah, maybe not the career Teo Eden was expecting when he up sticks from Fulham. But yeah, it's really scary how similar they are to us, I'd say. Unfortunately, they're probably in a little bit better form than we are at this moment in time, as much as we've only lost the one game. The manner of that defeat generally can have an effect not only on our form but the confidence of the squad. So I'd like to see us make some changes. I think we do need to freshen up the squad a little bit. It has got a little bit samey, as much as the results haven't been disastrous, far from it, with the amount of wins we've pulled off the season. But yeah, it's going to be a very close game once again, I hope anyway. I said that on Tuesday and it ended up to be a 4-1 defeat. So a really good test, but a really good opportunity for Town to right the wrongs of Tuesday night. But yeah, as I said, make sure you check out ITFC Analytics. He's going to have a little bit more detail, as he always does, in how to perhaps best Lincoln City. But yeah, I think from my own personal point of view, I think you've got to try and stop those wingers. Definitely support Kenlock. I think he got overexposed on Tuesday night against Doncaster. As much as that didn't actually cause us too many problems, it's just adding to the pressure on the defence. And yeah, it did lead to some mistakes, I'm sure. But if we can stop Johnson and Grant from performing, and maybe try and get at these young fullbacks, Ioma and Rowan, who have not got vast amounts of experience. You look at the likes of Edwards and Lancaster, who Edwards obviously in terrific form, and Lancaster has put up some good performances this season as well. If we can get at them and maybe the midfield do their job and win the battle on Saturday, then we could be looking at redemption for the boys. But yeah, that sums up Lincoln, and we're going to have to wait and see if Town manage to bounce back on Saturday. But yeah, we'll be back on Saturday with yet another. On Saturday? We won't be back on Saturday. I'm not doing live matches. We've seen how well that goes for other Ipswich content creators this week. But yeah, we'll be back on Sunday and we'll see how we got on. So that'll do us then, guys. Thank you very much for listening, watching, wherever you are on whatever platform you are watching or listening on. Yeah, not an enjoyable week this week, having to talk about an absolutely embarrassing and disappointing defeat, but that's football, isn't it? We're used to it as Ipswich Town fans, the disappointment. But yeah, hopefully that was a one-off, and yeah, like I said, we'll be back on Sunday with yet another normal episode with all the latest Town news, and yeah, hopefully we'll be talking about a return to winning ways, but time will tell and we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that nonsense. I don't push for it too often, but it does go a long way, and I do appreciate all your support. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you on Sunday. Take care. Thank you for watching or listening to this week's ITFC Unrestricted podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer and TuneIn. If you haven't already, make sure you follow, download or subscribe so you never miss an episode wherever you are listening. A new episode will be live on all platforms at 6 p.m. every Sunday. For more immediate reaction to all the latest town news, give me a follow on Twitter at rskid26. Go on, you know you want to. Until next week, I've been your host, Mark Beck. So take what you need, be on your way, and keep on following town.